continuous engagement of being motivated. And when we're feeling flat and not feeling like being motivated, to give you some tools and strategies on how to be motivated. Now we talk about motivation, we might be motivated to find a better job or find a job or make some more sales, whatever your motivation is, then it's always handy to have some strategies and some techniques on how to get motivated. Now I've put this beautiful image up here. If one of your motivations is to go to a fantastic location, have a lovely holiday, there you go. So a bit of a visual cue there. Let's go back here. So folks, there's some, in terms of introduction to the topic of motivation, keeping ourselves motivated, there was some interesting research that took place across the world, and there were some leading international universities that were leading this research into motivation. Some of those universities were Harvard University, UCLA, Oxford University, and a number of others. I think Melbourne University was included there. And what they did is they researched a lot of people that seemed to be more positive, more engaging, more motivated, and kept themselves going even in times of hardship and when they didn't feel like it. And what were the findings of the research were quite interesting. They found, with researching some 4,000 people across the world, they found there was basically four shapes that best represented these different people. As an activity, what I'd quickly like you to do, and well, you're going to choose a shape, but don't tell anybody else next to you, all right? I want you to think about the type of personality you are. Are you a square? Are you a rectangular type of person? Do you relate to this shape? Triangle? Or are you more circular? So just take a minute to choose a shape that you feel best represents your unique personality and your character and values. So let's go through them. Who picked the square? Can I see some hands? Okay, a couple of people picked the square. This person is very reliable. They manage their time extremely well. They seem to get on well with a number of other people and tend to be fairly secure in what they're doing. Thank you. Anybody pick the rectangle? Can I see some hands? Okay, a couple of you. This person, you can put your hands down. This person tends to be long-term in time. They think far into the future. They make plans for the far future. We're talking 5, 10, 20 years from now. Anybody in the room pick the triangle? Okay, a couple of people, wonderful. Put your hand down. This person is very creative. They're very good at solving problems and seeing solutions from different aspects, particularly when it comes to other people. Wonderful. And who picked the circle? Hands up high, please. Whoa, wow, look at you. About 80% of you. Now this person is primarily preoccupied with two things: booze and sex. Now that's out of Harvard. Not folks, when we're talking about motivation and we're talking about engaging and keeping going in times of adversity and so forth, I want to share my personal story with you and my journey, how I've got to be at this present time. And the image we're looking at here is an image of my mum and dad and my siblings when we were little boys. Now this little guy here is me at the age of about 6, and you can see this face. I was not a very happy boy. However, I had a reasonably secure family, but growing up in Australia was in those years was reasonably difficult. But there was also opportunities. I went through school and secondary school, and when I got into secondary school at year 10, my teacher suggested to me, "Kevin, you need to leave school. Kevin, you're not really smart enough to go on to years 11 and 12. So their suggestion to me, or their recommendation to me, was to leave school. And I was not really surprised at this because I struggled at school. I left school barely being able to read and barely knowing how to add numbers and so forth. However, I was reasonably good socially. Anyway, with this in my mind, I worked in a factory. I worked in a factory at the age of 17, where I hated every minute of the time I spent in that factory, where I was making furniture, I was repairing furniture and restoring furniture, to which I remember working in this factory and thinking, I wish I could just get a better job than this. I wish I could get a better job than this. I saw my friends going through school. My friends went through to university. My friends came into the city here, dressed in a suit and feeling very, very confident and doing well. And here I am working in a filthy, dirty factory, doing a job that I didn't like doing and feeling really miserable. And you know what was really sad about that is, how many days of the week do we have? We have 7, don't we? We have 7 days of the week that we can do something. And you know what, in those years, I was miserable for 6 of those days. The only day I was happy was Friday. Think of Friday, you beauty! It's Friday, the weekend, I can go and party, drink too much, eat too much, all those things, and probably get into trouble. And then, you know, Sunday would come, and you think, oh, got to go to work tomorrow, oh no. And you'd go back to work Monday, oh, hate Mondays, and then Tuesday's not much better. Wednesday a little bit better, Thursday and Friday, you beauty, the weekend. And that's how my life was. Get this, not for 1 year, not for 2, but for 13 years I went through this condition. So I went from this young 17-year-old working in this factory till I was 29, 30. But I was stuck. I was stuck here. My thinking wouldn't let me go further because I couldn't spell and I couldn't read or write properly. I was stuck in the factory. And during those years, unfortunately, one of my older brothers, who's here, John, he sadly was killed. He was 30 years of age at the time, and I myself, my partner and I, we lost a baby. And at the age of 29, I said to myself, you know, this is no dress rehearsal. We get one chance at life. We get one chance. We're not coming back for a second go. This is it. And a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, gave me a book on motivation and self-esteem. And in the book, it said it's okay to like yourself. And I read this book, I listened to the material, and the speaker was saying, say to yourself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And you know, I started doing this, I was almost in tears. At the age of 30, you know, here I am feeling, wow, it's okay to like myself, it's okay to feel good about myself. And you know what was really interesting, and I'll get you to make a mental note of this now, is learn to like yourself. Tell yourself, I like myself, I like myself. Repeat this over and over to yourself, and you'll feel better about yourself. Not in a vain or arrogant manner, but in a sense that you get a sense of calm that, hey, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm worthwhile liking. And this can be very profound. And once I started to feel more comfortable in my own space and in my own skin, then my ability to learn gradually increased, yeah? Indeed. So I took myself back to night school. I finished my school at night as an adult. I was in the classroom with people a lot younger than me. So I finished school, then went on to university, and because I got into sales, I had a few career changes at that point. So I did build up the courage to leave that factory job, and I got onto the road where I was commissioned selling and doing reasonably well. Sometimes did spectacularly well and sometimes spectacularly poorly. Nevertheless, I was learning and growing, and I was so excited. I was so excited to be out of that factory and doing what I wanted to do. And during that period, I thought to myself, and I was learning about motivation, I was learning about personal development, and I made that commitment with myself that I was going to pay the price for success. I was going to pay the price for my success. I wasn't quite sure what success meant to me back then, but I was going to pay that price. That price came in the form of economically, so it cost me a lot in terms of money. I lost some, what I thought were close friends. The family dynamics changed somewhat. So I paid a price in terms of economically, socially, and feeling secure in my social group, because it all started to break down, which was part of the price. So that, and that's okay. And so I went back to university, I finished my degree, I graduated with an MBA. I was at that stage where I was engaging in training staff, mostly long-term unemployed people here in Australia. So I was teaching them motivational skills and job search skills. I ended up teaching in our prison here in Melbourne, teaching the prisoners how to feel better and do better and communicate better. I called that session the 7 Steps to Freedom. The next day when I come back to prison, they'd all jump over the fence. They followed the 7 steps over the fence. But no, not really. So that was a great experience. And but yeah, during these years, I was just so hungry. Here's another tip for you: get hungry to learn. And I so admire you for the courage that you guys have had, where you've travelled from the security of your family, the security of your culture, the security of your friends. You've travelled all the way to across the opposite side of the world, virtually, to a place of Australia where we speak English, we've got strange cultures, we speak fast and it's difficult, we have different money, different work practices, etc. So I admire you for taking that huge step. The learning you're exposed to in this country and your personal development in doing this, you'll carry this for the rest of your life. So please cherish it, because you're learning so much. So grow from it, improve from it, take the next step. And yeah, so getting my degree, I ended up speaking in corporations where I was training the executives and salespeople on how to be better communicators and better salespeople. And really, you have to pinch yourself to realise, when I reflect back, when I was a 25-year-old adult working in a factory and thinking, wishing I could do something that I want to do, and now doing what I do now, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. And you might be saying to yourself, well, that's okay, you grew up in Australia, you know Australia, you speak the language, etc. And you might have an argument there. However, in my mind, my barriers were solid as rock solid to stay where I was. Stay secure, do what I'm safe with without taking the risk. So, and I've travelled overseas to speak and train people. I've travelled to different parts of Australia to do that. I'm a published author now and doing quite well. As most of you know, I'm married with a couple of children and very happy in terms of my personal stuff. But what a journey, huh? What a journey. But I did pay a price. Now, what I'm going to share with you now is some strategies and some tools in terms of some things that I did to make this happen. And believe me, if I can do it, you can do it. Now, I've got some handouts for you folks. I'll distribute them around. So you can either use these handouts as I speak, or I think some of your teachers are planning to run some workshops for you after the session. So, couple of schools of thought here in terms of some fundamentals about motivation and keeping motivated. I want to talk about 6 laws, if you will, of success and achievement. Now, these laws are like Isaac Newton. You know, Isaac Newton, the law of gravity, yes? The law of gravity, something falls to the ground. So I'm going to be talking about some laws. Now, these laws are not made up by me. They've been talked about with philosophers and deep thinkers for many, many years. However, I've picked out 6 here that I think, well, I could relate to reasonably well in terms of my development. And we will touch on these further as we go through the workshop. We'll be here for another 20, 30 minutes, and then we're happy to open it up for questions and discussions. Right? So the law of control is the first law there. The law of control essentially talking about, as individuals, the more we feel that we have control over our circumstances, the more control we think we have on our job environment, our financial situation, our social aspect, the more control we feel we have, the better we will feel about ourselves. Now, the better we feel about ourselves will improve our ability to learn new things, develop things we already know, and to improve our skills with the skills that we already have. So the more we feel that we've got those control, we'll accelerate and compound these things. The next law is the law of concentration, which effectively says the more you think and the more you concentrate on the person you want to become and the things that you want to acquire and the things you want to have and the qualities and the values that you want to instill and build in yourself, the more you concentrate and think about these things, you will attract them. Almost like a magnet, you know, a magnet with a bit of metal, bang, stuck together. These are some of the laws that will start to happen. The more you concentrate on the things that you want, as opposed to the things that you don't want. Important. The law of belief is similar to this. Is the more that we firmly believe that something is going to happen, the more likely is that it will happen. In other words, if you've got a job interview that's coming up, the more that you believe that this is going to work out well, the more that you believe that you will speak well, the more that you believe that you'll communicate at a higher level, the more that you believe this in your own mind, the more likely that will fulfill itself in reality. The law of expectations, similar to the law of belief, is the more we expect something to happen, the more likely it is to happen. So having that optimistic view that you expect something good to happen, or you're expecting a good outcome from a meeting or an interview, the more you expect this, the more likely it is that it will happen. The law of attraction, which I just mentioned, the more you think about your goals, the more you concentrate on your goals, the goals will be attracted to you, and you'll be attracted to your goals. Very powerful. And the last law there is the law of reciprocity. Now this law is somewhat worthwhile considering in terms of when you're going out talking to prospective employers and building social networks, that this can be a reasonably powerful law. And it's the law of, if somebody does you a favour, or if somebody does something in kind to you, how do we feel? We feel somewhat obligated to reciprocate in kind, to pay back, if you will. I'll give you an example of this. If you go to a friend's place for dinner and you bring a bottle of wine to have with the dinner, when they come to your place for dinner, they'll feel a sense of obligation to reciprocate in kind, and they'll bring a bottle of wine back to you. This is a very powerful law. Now, in terms of what, as I mentioned before, about networking and developing relationships, particularly with work and career, that if you do something in kind for somebody else, in other words, refer a friend to a potential employer, or provide some knowledge or information to a prospective employer, they'll feel somewhat obligated to reciprocate in kind. Very powerful. Anyway, let's move on to the next slide. So I want to throw these questions at you, and these are quite a profound question in terms of, it takes a little bit of thinking, and I suggest you might want to reflect on this question, is where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself into the future? So where do you see yourself in 12 months' time, 5 years, 10 years from now? What would you like your life to look like? Would you like to be married? Would you like to be single? Would you like to have children? What sort of job would you like to have? Where would you like to live? And what would your ideal life look like? Because concentrating on where you want to be into the future is quite profound. You'll start to bring that into your reality. And if I see you on the streets of Copenhagen or Mumbai or Beijing or Osaka in 10 years' time, and I see you, I remember you. You were at the College Nova, weren't you? What are you doing now? What would you like to tell me? What would you like to tell me? So, where do you see yourself in the future, 5, 10, 20 years from now? Very profound question. And I've also put these following bullet points there in terms of considering keeping a balanced life. Now, this can be a challenge, but think about where you would like to be in the future in terms of your friends, your social aspects and your family. Where do you see yourself into the future with your health and fitness? Do you want to be smoking or sitting on a bar drinking beer all day? Or what do you do? What do you want to do? Do you want to be fit and healthy? Your education and personal development. And we could probably throw your spiritual development into that too when we say personal development. So recognising our spiritual being and our education. Here you are at college, getting degrees here in Australia, which is fantastic. After this is complete, where are you going after that? Are you going to engage in something formal through universities or something informal perhaps? It does not necessarily education from a qualification point of view. And also the last one, financial and career. You know, do you want to make a lot of money, or you're you're happy to not make a lot of money, or what do you want your financial future to look like? So, highly recommend that you consider this, because part of my journey is I had a clear picture. I was lucky enough to meet some people that helped me clarify where I wanted to be into the future, and I knew exactly I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this. And so every being of me, and I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the gift of the gab, I had to learn, and I had to learn the hard way. I would go to speaking engagements where they would just feel really badly, and I'd walk out feeling embarrassed, I'd walk out feeling sick, and then I'd do another one where it was good, and I got good feedback, and people enjoyed it. And I knew that deep down that this was my calling, this is what I was meant to do, and I'm so grateful I have the opportunity to do it. So, a very profound question: where do you see yourself in the future? What do you want to be doing in terms of family, economics, education, and your peace of mind and your happiness? Get this in your mind now, and think about it, and you'll attract it into your life. It's rather extraordinary. Guys, I'm going to give you 11 steps in terms of goal setting formula. These are in your handout. I'll go through them step by step, but what I suggest is in your workshops after this one is to go through them, work through the exercise with your teachers and trainers. So number one, write your goal down clearly. So write it down. Use this thing called paper and a mark, and actually write it. Don't fall for the temptation of typing it into your computer or your device. It's quite profound thought process when you actually write your goals down. So write your goals down clearly and in detail. A little bit like if you were to engage with an architect or a builder and you said to them, build me a house. So, yeah, we'll build your house. How many bedrooms do you want? How many bathrooms? How many windows? How do you want this placed, etc.? So the architect and the builders would need a really detailed drawing, wouldn't they? To build your dream house. Huh? Stairs here, window there, sink there, shower there, carport there, etc. Yeah? Detailed. Measurements, 3 metres by 4 metres here, etc., etc. Very detailed. This is how you need to be with writing your goals down. Be very detailed and specific. Next point, set a deadline on your goal, and possibly even sub-deadlines depending on how big the goal. A goal is really just a wish unless you put a time frame, a deadline on it. So write a date. If you want to achieve a certain level of weight, then write that weight down and put a date to when you want to accomplish this weight goal. Or a career goal, if you want a job, put a date to when you're going to get a job. Number 3, identify any obstacles or barriers that might be in the way between where you are now and where you want to be. Now those barriers might be tangible, in other words they might be a language skill, they might be economic, monetary issues, or they might be education type of skills. You might need to learn some new skills and so forth. But identify what are the barriers between where you are now and where you want to be in the future. Number 4 is identify the knowledge and the skills that you will need to acquire. So important, thinking about your goal, you will invariably need to learn some things and some skills. So identify them. Number 5, identify people that might be able to help you. during my journey, I've been exposed to a lot of different people that have helped me and given me advice. And you know what? And at first, when I was told to speak to this person and that person, they were very successful people, and I was very nervous and very apprehensive about approaching these people and speaking to them. But what would they want to have to do with me? But I found with meeting these people and talking with them, they were extremely open, extremely willing to share their story, to share their advice on what to do. So in your process, identify any people or experts that you need to sort their advice from and go and talk to them. Number 6, make a list of everything you need to have to achieve your goals. So usually large, profound goals, if your goal is to weigh a certain weight, you might have to make a list of the certain foods and drinks you might need to have, or a list of things such as going shopping at certain times and avoiding other times, etc. Number 7, organise your list in a sequence of priority. So which comes first, which comes second. So get detailed in terms of your activities when it comes to working towards your goal. And then yes, make a list. Organise your list in terms of a top to bottom, and do something every single day to take you from where you are to where you want to be. Make that commitment, guys. Just a couple more. Number 9 is plan your goals in terms of activities. So think about what activities you need to do to step towards your goal. That might be ringing somebody up. That might be researching a company. That might be calling in and meeting somebody. It might be preparing a document, or it might be having somebody look at your resume to get some advice on how to improve that resume. It could be all these little steps that you need to do to take you towards your goal. Number 10 is set priorities on your list and identify the most important thing. So with your list of activities, identify what are the most important things that I need to do to take me towards my goal. And number 11, the last one, is discipline yourself to stick at it, no matter the resistance, the sense of feeling comfortable. I don't want to do this. The person will laugh at me. The person will reject me. And so stick with it and push through these barriers. And the more you do this, the stronger you'll become as a human being. The stronger you become as a human being, the more other successful people, happy people, and joyful people will be attracted into your life too. So discipline yourself to do it, no matter the resistance. So folks, I want to leave you with a couple of points. Is in terms of working towards your goal, is a couple of things I call affirmations, or a couple of strategies. And one is acting the part. Is acting the part. If you want to feel happier and more, just simply act happy, act optimistic, act joyful, act with a positive expectations. Think about these laws we talked about before, about laws of belief and so on. So act these laws out, and things will work out. In terms of mental rehearsal, you've probably watched the Olympic Games and major sporting events and seen the sports stars get up there and perform really well. Interesting, a famous Australian golfer several years ago, Greg Norman, which some of you might recognise the name, they were talking to him after, I think it might have been the US Open or the US PGA. Anyway, he didn't do so well at this particular event, and the commentator was asking Greg, well, you know, what's going on with your game? He said, I had a bad day today. After I leave here, I'm going to go and practice. And the commentator said, well, you know, practice here at the golf course. He said, no, I'm going home to practice. And the commentator questioned him about this. Yeah, I'm going home to practice up here. Practice up here. See in your mind, imagining, using these laws. He saw himself in his own mind, lining the ball up well, addressing the ball, perfect swing, follow through, foot movement, and balance correct. He saw that ball going off into the distance and landing it where he wanted to land it. He would rehearse this, practice this up here. So I put this image up here with this lady taking a breath in terms of getting ready to shoot for this goal. Look at the level of concentration there. Now, if you've got an important meeting coming up, I want you to give this some intensity. I want you to give this some real concentration, guys, in terms of seeing yourself acting the part, seeing it all as you would like to see it. Wonderful. And this one, I think it's in your handouts too, is the 3P formula when it comes to affirmations. Now, affirmations are the words we say to ourselves, about ourselves, when we're by ourselves. And they're very profound words indeed. Most of us talk at around 500 to 700 words a minute in terms of up here, and with most of us, a lot of those thoughts are negative. So in terms of taking you towards your goals, let's think about the 3 Ps. The first P stands for it needs to be personal. So you might want to write that down if any of you got a pen. Personal. The second P, it needs to be present. In other words, couched in the now, present. And the third P needs to be positive. I can give you an example of that, and I mentioned it before. Tell yourself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. That affirmation is personal because the positive is that it's like and myself. And it's couched now, not I will like myself, because that is phrased into the future, is I like myself. That's strong, positive affirmation statement. I can do it. I can do it. I am smart. I am smart. I speak English well. I speak English well. Say these things over and over again to yourself, and it will reinforce in your behaviour. So, folks, I want to wrap it up and leave you with these 9 points. And they are, number 1 is create that vision. Where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years' time from now? Create that. Write it down. Is learn to like yourself. Give thanks. Have an attitude of gratitude. It's so profound. Just to reflect how lucky I am. I've got my health, I've got my friends, I've got my family, I've got a job, I'm learning. How good is this? Huh? How good is this? Wonderful. Next one is create a clear set specific goals for yourself that you want to work towards and accomplish. Number 5, learn what you need to learn. Folks, in the age of digital communication and computers, this notion of learning what we need to learn has just never been so easy for us. With internet, with online videos, online lectures, online books and material, and this is so easy for us to learn what we need to learn. And I mentioned before in the goal setting formula, develop the skills, learn the skills you need to learn to take towards the goal. So here we go. Learn the skills you need to learn. Engage with businesses and industry you want to work with. Seek advice from experts. Invest 3% of your income back into yourself. Now, guys, you're already doing that by paying your school fees and learning and developing here at college, so you should be congratulated. Those that are not, we need to invest in ourselves and go into seminars, buying books, doing courses, etc., to continually feed our mind and grow as individuals. And the last one there is pay the price you need to pay to be successful and achieve your goals. Folks, I'd like to finish up. If you could please do this. All of you get to do this. All of you do this. Wonderful. Now do this.